Hi, nice to meet you. So this is the body of work that I developed as a commission for the Collezione Maramotti, and it's a work that speaks about the landscape, starting from the family albums or personal archives. Um, so the family album is the place where I first discovered the Italian landscape in a way, where I stopped and observed the landscape. I personally grew up not too far from here. I'm from Modena. Well, I kind of started looking at the landscape, the Italian landscape, through pictures where different members of my family were portrayed outdoors, being it the countryside, cities, and landmarks, but especially there are many pictures that are shot in interior spaces. So what I'm doing with this work, I found myself re-inhabiting the same landscape where I grew up as a young woman. This work is a mixture of still and moving image, where you see a figure moving throughout the landscape. And then you have two figures. One is my mother and one is myself, laying on the grass, sort of like reappropriating that particular space. And then, yeah, walking through different parts of the scene, in and out of the camera again. And well, what I'm doing is very much looking at pictures from the family album where you recognize a certain Italian landscape, but then the landscape almost overrides the subjectivity of the person that's portrayed. So I remove all of the elements that are in a way a distraction from observing the individual, and I place the subject into this very neutral landscape, grass, and yeah. So in this room, there's always this connection with the family album, especially images from the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, where my parents were living in Italy and portraying themselves and their friends and different members of their families. In my family album, in my personal archives, you have those kind of images, which are snapshots from daily life in Italy. You can also find images from my Toglese side of the family, which are studio portraits, so very formal portraits, which are linked to this tradition of going into the photographer's studio on a Sunday and having your portrait taken. And the peculiarity of the studio, as it appears, there's a negotiation with the photographer on how you would like to appear in the photos. So what I did with this work was taking certain stories that my mom told me about her life as a migrant in Italy, and I reenacted them in the studio, so placing those stories in the studio. So those are all, well, different moments, different poses that are not present in the family album, but that I recreated in the studio to follow this idea that the personal archives, they don't often tell the truth, and you might have beautiful moments like birthdays and weddings, and but the rest of different sides to one stories are left out from the family album. Like that photo, for instance, that you see there, comes from a recollection of my mom of her first arrival to Italy, where my dad completely forgot to go and pick her up at the station because he mixed up the dates. So it sort of like represents this moment of her waiting, which obviously is not present in the family album for certain reasons, but then it adds up to the imagination of those moments. Or that one, for instance, is, you have the subject posing next to her family photos, sort of like reminiscent of, a life spent between Italy and Togo. Those two images, for example, represent my mom's wedding, where in the first one, she had a more formal attire, and then when she renewed her vows, she was wearing a dress that was made in Togo. So yeah, in this work, you sort of have this tension between the private space of the album and personal histories and the photographer's studio. So there's always in both rooms you have the subject popping out of the image, and the background and what happens at the back, it's always kind of neutral. So there's a focus on personal stories and people's narrative. So to make my work, I'm often inspired by my own family album. But then this year, I had the opportunity to work with 3 researchers, which are actually here in the next room, like seeing the exhibition. So they helped me collect throughout Emilia-Romagna, but we kind of extended our research to national territory. We collected images from the African diaspora in Italy, so everything that was shot before the years 2000. And we launched an open call online, so we received some of the submissions online. And as well, we went to meet some of those families, and we shared conversations and stories that really tells you how the country has changed, how people experienced a country that maybe now it doesn't exist, as it's changed so much. And also it shows you a very dignifying version of what the diaspora is, which is sometimes left out of the picture. And I think sharing stories and images is something that really complicates the narrative around the diaspora, which is very often simplified. So by adding stories and having those conversations, we can, really get a small understanding of how things were. And in the next room, we'll see some of those pictures. So this is a small, very small selection of the images that we collected through the open call, but also through encounters with families. And some of the images are shot in the landscape. You have all of those recognizable elements of the Italian cities and countryside, really showing how people were portraying themselves in those years. As I said, we collected images through the open call, and we're building a digital database, but then there's also more physical version of that archive. I'm not sure I'm comfortable calling it archive, but collection of images. And we set in the room this collection box, which is meant to replicate the idea of the digital archive, that it's growing and we're getting loads of files and loads of scans from images. But then this brings like visually the growing of images, and then throughout the exhibition people will have I hope the chance to add images to the collection box. So it's a project that it's always growing, and yeah, hopefully one day we'll just open it up and see what's inside. So everything in here, they're copies of original photos, as yeah, photography is very it's easy to reproduce, so it's nice for us to have different copies. Like for instance, in my family photos, photo albums, there are copies of images that belong to my auntie. So it's nice how all of those images are able to travel between places. I found so many of those images, copies in Togo as well. So yeah, this is more restitution, and you can also kind of move around and see some of the images that are visible. There's also a video in the last room of the exhibition in which I collected some of the letters that were exchanged from Togo to Italy. So in the video, you will hear some of the letters read by the person that received them, and there will, yeah, conversation to keep someone updated on what was happening at home, and yeah, conversations between continents in which, yeah, you had the opportunity to exchange information with family. I guess the work was inspired by one of our researchers, Teo Imani, which was telling me that his parents would receive audio cassettes from the family in Ghana, and he has this recollection of his mom or his dad sitting on the bed and listening to those cassettes where the member of the family was recording their voice and telling them the news, the latest news from home. So that side of the story is also reproduced in the video piece. Yeah.
I have a question. I understand that it's because you're trying to tell the narratives of your own family, but did you ever think about moving this more into the contemporary and also including contemporary perspectives? Because African diaspora in Italy now is still a little thing. There's still people.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, there's always this fascination with the past, which comes from well, the West African studio portrait tradition as well. I think there's many artists from my generations which are very inspired by that style of portraiture, and I think yeah, I think it's very important to kind of think of the reasons why, because they give you this very dignified vision of how blackness used to be. And the same is in these pictures. You can always see people wearing nice clothes and always displaying themselves as they would like to be seen. And I think that's something that is very linked with the past, while nowadays the narrative around foreigners living in the country is very different, it's very saturated. So it's as a black person growing up in Italy, I think it's very important to me to look at the past and look at different representation of how black people used to be or how they used to represent themselves. So I think that's why I'm not moving too much to the contemporary, because I guess it's so uncertain as well. So yeah.
For the scenes that you recreated, how did you choose to prioritize memories and stories to recreate?
I guess there's many images that I recreated, and this is a small selection. And I'm not sure. I guess it's being the project very personal. There's a personal element in the selection of the works as well. So just the pictures I like the best, and but also, yeah, on the stories that I was that took me more. I guess the work in the room next door, you have those portraits are very fragmented, and this idea of disintegration of the image, and also in the placement on the walls. So they all look like images that are not quite finished or still work in progress. Like on one of them, there's a red circle, which is what I usually use with negatives to mark the negatives that I want to select or that I want to discard. So like the image of my mom with the African dress, the bubu, you can see how can I say, the test that I'm doing on the exposure of the image, something that you do in the dark room. There's always this element of the work not being quite finished, and then placing it on the wall as it is, like unfinished. So yeah, I guess the selection is marked on the kind of work that I was doing on that image in a specific time. Yeah.
A more general question: how did you get in touch with photography, or what were your starting points?
I'm not too sure actually. I always used to take photos and videos on holidays. So I guess it comes from my dad just giving me the camera and just being like, get busy, do something. But yeah, I don't know. It's always been a passion of mine, and I then went to study study photography in London, and I guess when I started university, that became the moment where I sort of thought that's what I want to do in a more serious and intentional way. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you because, like, seeing your photographs, I see some kind of game between time, like your present time and the one of your families or alien time, and also color. Like you have this really bright colors and also black and white photography. So I wanted to know if there's a link between both of them, or
Yeah, I guess it has a lot to do with the progression of time in the album as well. Most of the pictures from my Togolese side of the family are black and white portraits from the 70s or from 66, like right after independence. And the images from my parents shot in the 80s, 90s are all in color. It was a time for color photography, big Kodak times. So I guess it's yeah, it's an element of play with time and in a way locating the images in a space that is neutral. So you have the studio that gives you that neutrality. You don't know where the images were shot. They could have been shot in Togo as well as in Italy. And then you have the black and white and color that, yeah, gives you that idea of not quite being able to place the images in time. Yeah.
thank you.
I wanted to ask, because you mentioned that you were doing like this, you did like an online open call, but you also met some of the families. And I wanted to know, like, how did those encounters happen? How long did it take? Or I don't know, how was it?
Yeah, so it was a very long process. I guess through the open call, we could reach as many friends and people that we knew already that also shared the open call with their contacts. And then we first started by dividing the region, and every week we would go into a city and see who we knew there. It was mainly through personal connections and also the open call online. And well, we sort of divided the workload. So I mainly spoke with people that were living close to me as I was shooting the rest of the work. Um, but yeah, they were very interesting encounters. We recorded conversations, and well, we had really the opportunities to see the background stories behind every image, because it's very nice to see them here, but then people like to tell about their lives. So it was very generous the way people shared information with us, and well, I hope the project can go on and we can meet as many people as possible, because I don't think we reached not even well. We're trying to reach as many people as possible, but it's difficult because families move, they move countries, they move houses, they lose their photos, they get damaged, and it's nice to be able to collect what it's left, and we hope to find more for sure.
Is the archive that you're creating still a work in progress?
Sorry, Syria?
Is the archive of photos that you're creating, would you still consider it a work in progress?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a work in progress, and yeah, hopefully it will evolve in time. Maybe at the end of the exhibition, the box will be full. We don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
Do you have, besides collecting all the photos, do you have any future plans for the archive? Do you want to implement it for some future works?
I'm still not sure, because the project, this side of the exhibition, this archival part of the exhibition, it doesn't have necessarily a strong connection with my personal work. I mean, it does, but in a different way. So in my work, I look at the personal space of the family, my family, and then this work here sort of represents how, starting from the personal, you can reach something universal, and how different people are collecting those images or are willing to collect those images. The people I collaborated with, Ifioma, Theo, and Mistura, they were looking to do the same research. So we joined forces and we worked together, and it's nice to see how everyone in the diaspora, is such a fragmented experience, the one of the diaspora, that everyone that you meet is trying to fill the gaps, and maybe I might have a piece and someone else might have a piece, and we're trying to build an archive that will give us a vision of how living in Italy used to be. And we're already finding so much, so I'm very curious to see what else we're gonna find. Yeah. Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, if you have the time, take a look at the video. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.